like a lot of times, when people around me, they sit there and say, well, you don't know how I feel. Well, what they don't know is I do know how they feel. You don't know what it's like to try to raise a baby by yourself. Yeah, yes, I do. Because I was a single mom until my son was 7 years old. I met my husband when he was 4 years old, and we started working together to take care of the kids, his kids and my kids. And when Michael was 7, we were married. So it was, and that's the only dad that Michael's ever known, because I ran away from his father. He says, you don't know what it's like to get beat up. Yes, I do. Who do you think I ran away from? So it's God doesn't try to be a show off. He's just like, how are you going to know how a person feels unless you've been there and done that? And that was the purpose of Jesus coming. He couldn't sacrifice himself for us until he experienced what it was like to be us. And then it was so much more. So, the Holy Spirit dwells within each follower of Christ. What is the greater way? In what greater way could God give dignity to our physical bodies? To me, that's like, how we were talking about honoring our bodies. Okay, God's using our body as a home to live in. He's our body is a temple. And granted, mine doesn't look the greatest. None, whose does? But the thing is that we're supposed to honor God with our bodies. And if we're torturing them, if we're doing drugs, if we're doing a lot of things that we shouldn't be doing, even the art that we put on there, if you're gonna, the tag. I was thinking about how people go out and they paint the side of the building
graffiti
because
tags,
the graffiti stuff. If you're gonna do graffiti, make it something that's honoring God. Like when you were saying tattoos, that how much you hate tattoos. To me that's kind of like tagging, but it's like, like what Michael put down. He's putting down an example of honoring God. And that's what we should do, is honor God with our bodies.
And some of the stuff that I'm going through and actually looking and reading the verses that it's dealing with is, the Holy Spirit of God dwells within each follower of Christ. In what greater way could God give dignity to our physical bodies? And with 1 Corinthians 3:16 and 17 goes, don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple, and that God's Spirit lives in you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him, for God's temple is sacred, and you are that temple.
A friend of ours, Hope, in Oregon, she passed away 2 years ago.
A year ago, because we were here when she passed.
Yeah, it's about a year ago. She was very much a Christian, and I would say 98% of the things she did in life, except for cutting. She cut her skin, cut her all the way down to the muscle at times. And my question is, read that again, Dad, where it says, destroying our bodies or something like that.
Okay, and don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple, and that God's Spirit lives in you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him.
Okay, when it comes to that, would it be that God took her because she was destroying his temple? That she was cutting? I'm just curious. I mean, it really kind of concerns me, that, she was a virgin. She worked as a volunteer almost non-stop for the Salvation Army. She worked with children like crazy. She read her Bible like nobody's business. She wanted to be a captain in the Salvation Army. That was her thing. If a guy were to come up to her and ask her out, one of the first things that comes out of her mouth is, if we're going to go on with this relationship, you got to realize I'm going to be a captain. If you can't handle that, there's the door. She did, like I said, about 98% of her life was for God. We should all be so much like him as she was. But my thing, I just listened to that verse and I was thinking of her is, was she taken because she was destroying her temple?
I can actually answer that one. That verse, Romans 1:2, not only talks about physical, but mental. Hope did all the right things in life. She, like you said, future captain of the Salvation Army. She was at the church more than we were, which was quite a damn bit. Everything physical she did. Outwards. Physical. Outwards. But internally, Hope didn't take care of herself. I mean, to be blunt, that person might go one shower a month. Cutting because she was lonely, but she wouldn't let anybody get close to her. I mean, you remember, first day I met Hope, that person, I had her pegged, and we had her over for dinner that night, and I had her bawling in the living room because I hit the nerve of, you're a great Christian on the outside. Just a prime example. Who was that one that got arrested for fraud? Oh, Tammy Faye Baker. Mm-hmm. Jim and Tammy Faye. Gave the appearance of a great Christian, but they also, on the inside, they were like, well, we can make money off this, we can make money off this. They were raking it in. Their thoughts weren't towards God, it was towards the money that Christians bring them. And that's where your thought process in general, if your thought process is different than what you say, like, as an example, I consider myself a Christian, but I know I have my days to where it's like, you're a Christian? Practice what you preach. Hope wasn't practicing what she preached. She wasn't practicing it to herself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. My question is was she taken because of that?
What did she die of?
She was, and I don't care if you keep her name on here, Mom. She would have loved to have been talked about. Okay. She was originally going to be having lap band surgery to lose weight. I would say she was probably close to 500 pounds in my height.
6. Yeah,
probably. But she was only 21, 22 years old and that heavy. Very rarely ever walked. We had to, push her just to walk the block and a half from her apartment to the Army at times. She went to the doctor to have the test done, to have the surgery, make sure her body was all up to par and stuff. Doctor realized there was something wrong with her heart. Heart wasn't doing the best. So he admitted her into the hospital before the surgery. Said she needed to run some tests on the heart before she could have it done. While she was staying in the hospital, she died in her sleep. And they believe what happened was she, being that she had so many tubes and stuff and everything, she couldn't turn over like she was used to at home. So basically, she crushed her heart.